Since leaving Jehovah's Witnesses, I've never produced a reaction video to anything that the organisation has uploaded to its website jw.org. Until now. Last night, while researching a different video, I stumbled across a title and a thumbnail that I just couldn't resist clicking on. 1 minute 43 seconds later, I was incensed. My blood was boiling. It took me hours to calm down. In my opinion, this short cartoon is the most desperate, despicable piece of propaganda I've ever seen them produce to brainwash children and ensure numerical stability. Before we start analysing and dissecting this, revealing the real meaning behind certain aspects of it, it's important that I clarify for those who have never been a Jehovah's Witness exactly what a unbaptised publisher actually is. Shortly after giving birth, Jehovah's Witness parents will take their newborn door to door in a pram, and as that baby develops into a young child, it will hold its parent's hand and walk door to door. But if that child was to become an unbaptised publisher, each and every month it could get a field service report, write down exactly how many hours they've done in the ministry, how many placements they've made that month, and if they've conducted any Bible studies. Those figures are then used by the congregation and the organisation to calculate global statistics. But it's not really about this piece of paper. The bigger implication is that this is the gateway to all other privileges and responsibilities. Becoming an unbaptised publisher is putting your first step on a ladder from which all other rungs are reachable and possible, most notably baptism. With that being said, let's watch the first half of the video.
Hey Dad, here's my service report.
Good. You can put it on the bench.
Okay. Dad, when can I be a publisher?
Ah, you have brought this up before. When we're together in the ministry, you do very well when speaking at the door.
So then I can?
Not just yet. It's like getting a license to drive a car. You have to be approved.
Oh.
We can discuss how the elders are involved in approving you. For now, let's see if you might qualify. First, do you obey Jehovah and your parents?
Yeah?
Firstly, how old would you say Caleb is? When I asked my wife, she said perhaps between 5 to 8 years old. In the Lego scene, he's still holding his teddy. What's interesting is that according to this script, this isn't the first time that Caleb has raised this topic with his dad.
Ah, you have brought this up before.
How old do the leaders of this organisation want you to believe Caleb originally was when he first posed this question? 3? 4? 5? If you ask any 4, 5, 6-year-old boy what they want to do, what they want to become, they want to go outside and play football, they want to get on their tablet, they want to play with their toys. Why is it that Caleb wants to become an unbaptised publisher?
Hey Dad, here's my service report.
Because his sister is one. Sibling rivalry, or perhaps in this case, sibling imitation. Like all children, Caleb will crave acceptance. He wants to fit in, to belong. And if we're all being honest, looking back, that was a pattern that extrapolated into our adolescence, into our early adulthood. Why is it that the typical age range for baptism is normally between 11 to 17 years old? Is it because children can fully comprehend the weight of committing to an irreversible, lifelong commitment, the biggest decision of their life? No, not on any level. It's because their friends are getting baptised. Perhaps their parents got baptised when they were their age. Or perhaps they want to date in the religion, and someone will only date someone that's baptised. In my experience of working with children on the ministry, it really doesn't take long before they're bored. They want to go home. They want to play. They want to go straight to coffee break, but they still have 55 minutes left on first call. Apparently, Caleb is different.
When we're together in the ministry, you do very well when speaking at the door.
Although I don't have children myself, I can imagine that waking up, motivating a young child to go out on the ministry rather than play with its toys and have fun, ensuring that it's well behaved out in the field service, that it's being a good, positive reflection of the organisation, that sounds challenging. But the organisation are reminding the countless thousands of families with young children within this religion that getting them out on the ministry, well, pat on the back, but it's not enough. It's not enough that your 5-year-old is holding your hand and behaving well going door to door. It doesn't matter whether they're knocking on the door of a 29-year-old window cleaner like myself or an 81-year-old evolutionary biologist named Richard Dawkins. Either way, a child should be competent at preaching and teaching to all sorts of people. And who's going to tell a 5 or 6-year-old child to clear off? Caleb's father then provides 3 qualifying factors that Caleb would have to meet in order to be considered and approved as an unbaptized publisher.
First, do you obey Jehovah and your parents?
Yeah.
When translated from the language cult to modern English, that question is, are you willing to obey anything and everything that we as your parents or this man-made organisation on earth asks from you with complete submissiveness, including all of its propaganda?
Next, do you believe the Bible is Jehovah's word? And can you explain the basic teachings?
Yes.
I know a parent and child who used to be in the organisation, and when this child was 7 years old, they say that the elders were pestering them to try and get this 7-year-old to do a Bible reading, as you just saw Caleb doing from the platform in the cartoon. This parent said, no, I don't think it's right. I don't think he's ready. They also knew that this was merely the prelude to getting this child to be able to be ready to become an unbaptized publisher, getting on that first step of the ladder. There will be thousands and thousands of Jehovah's Witness couples with young children watching this as a family, thinking, I'm not sure if our son Tobias is actually ready to do a Bible reading in front of the congregation. I don't think he'd handle that well. But this is what Jehovah's telling us to do. Maybe we're standing in his way. We should at least encourage him to reach out to do this. There is a saying which is especially true of religion. You are accepted for what you believe. You are dismissed for what you know. What does a 5 or 6 or 7-year-old child know about this book? About this God? How much of this book have they read? Or perhaps more pertinently, how much have they fully comprehended? They believe what they've been told, that there is this happy, joyful Santa Claus in the sky who loves them very much and wants to be their best friend. They do not know that the God Jehovah, or the God Yahweh, is an ancient Israelite war deity, originally derived from a pantheon, who, upon closer inspection of the Old Testament, is a merciless, genocidal, infanticidal slave monger.
And are your friends Jehovah's friends?
Yeah.
Again, when you translate that from cult to English, do you distance yourself from your worldly, satanic classmates and only form exclusive friendships with people who are in our cult? Don't get me wrong. One thing that I really do miss about being a Jehovah's Witness was the friendships that I formed with people of all sorts of ages. I used to love going out on the ministry and doing return visits with a man who at the time was in his late 50s and one in their late 60s. That was one of my favourite things that I miss to this day. But if you were to ask a 4, 5, 6, 7-year-old boy, who's your best friend or who's your closest friend, usually their friends would be around the same age range. give or take a few years. There's a few years, and then there's that. Why do I think that the organisation has propagated this image? 2 reasons. Firstly, unfortunately for the organisation, there are missing age gaps now within the organisation. The older generation are dying off, and that's where so many of their numbers were. There are less and less youngsters, less and less middle-aged having young children. So perhaps if your only pool of possible friendships are those within the same religion, within a certain mile radius of you, perhaps you're going to have to get used to hearing stories about the Great War from Brother Parker. But secondly, think about who are the most devoted, the most brainwashed in the religion, those who are the least likely to wake up and leave. It is the older generation. They are the strongest spiritually, and they will help to indoctrinate the younger generation far better than other youngsters. Caleb's dad has asked 3 questions, but he saves the most important to now.
Caleb, you are already doing very well. One last thing. Do you want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses and preach?
I do. I think I'm ready.
I think you are too. But we'll have to see what the elders decide. I'm so proud of you, son. Now, could you hand me that wrench?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Earlier in this video, Caleb's dad said,
We can discuss how the elders are involved in approving you.
if this video was longer, it would show Caleb's dad, once he's finished working on the car, going into his briefcase, finding the book Organised to Do Jehovah's Will, and reading paragraph 14 of chapter 8. The coordinator of the body of elders will arrange for 2 elders to meet with the child and his believing parents. If the child has a basic knowledge of Bible truth and gives evidence of wanting to share in the ministry, this would indicate good progress. After considering these and other factors similar to those that apply to adults, the 2 elders can determine whether the child may be recognised as an unbaptised publisher. Why is it that the word wanting is in italics and that every other word isn't? Why not put the word knowledge in italics? It's because the leaders of this organisation know that very often oozing from children is passion, is desire. They want to do stuff, they want titles, they want roles, they crave that. And that's the ugly bottom line. It's not about knowledge. It's not about forming an unbiased, intellectually honest perspective of Jehovah, the Bible, the organisation. It's about taking advantage of a child's naivety, of a child's desire and craving for social acceptance and approval. If you were raised in this religion, you'll be aware that there is a hamster wheel, especially for brothers to jump on, and many of them never get off. Reach out, reward, recognition, repeat. Caleb has displayed that he is reaching out for this at such a young age. Shortly he will get the reward, this title, this privilege, and then the recognition is overwhelming. A brief announcement that he is a new unbaptised publisher will be made to the congregation. Approximately 100 people congratulating Caleb, hugging him, kissing him, giving him cards and presents. But now that he's on this hamster wheel, the organisation want to keep him there. And he wants to stay there. Just like a dog that does a trick and gets recognition, praise, a reward like a treat. That dopamine fix, that dopamine release is what Caleb will now crave. Not just the reward, but anticipating the reward and the recognition. That's what leads to addiction. And so where is Caleb getting his next fix from? During the meeting, the elders should commend the child for his progress and encourage him to set the goal of baptism. You have a 6-year-old who is being guided not only by his parents but by elderly men in the congregation who he instinctively trusts and respects, to think seriously about committing his entire life in the near future to this organisation. From a survival perspective, it is essential that this young child not only listens to this guidance, but follows the guidance implicitly. In the past, whenever his parents or these elderly men have said something, it's always been for his benefit, and they've always been right. When his parents have said, "Oh, make sure you look both ways and hold my hand before you cross the road, or you'll get hit by a car," he knows this is true. He knows what would happen. In the past, when his parents have said, "Be careful about how close you get to the fire, it will burn you," he may have learnt the hard way that his parents are always right. But unfortunately, as psychologist Darrell Ray states, a child cannot discriminate between useful survival information and the emotional and psychological manipulations of religion. Once infected, these ideas are deeply embedded and almost impossible to change. Does the organisation know this? You bet. Are they unashamedly taking advantage of a child's vulnerability and innocence? Absolutely. When in future Caleb makes the decision that he wants to get baptised, he will stand in a large assembly of brothers and sisters and answer the following two questions in a loud voice. Have you repented of your sins, dedicated yourself to Jehovah, and accepted his way of salvation through Jesus Christ? Do you understand that your baptism identifies you as one of Jehovah's Witnesses in association with Jehovah's organisation? In other words,
Do you want to be one of Jehovah's Witnesses and preach?
this organisation wants to get very young children into the habit of audibly confirming their identity as one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Despite the diabolic nature of this video, one thing that I can almost agree with is a quote from Caleb's dad, where he compares becoming an unbaptized publisher with being qualified to drive a car.
It's like getting a license to drive a car. You have to be approved.
Unintentionally, and rather ironically, this comparison by Jehovah's organisation tremendously backfires. What would happen if a 6-year-old boy phoned up a driving instructor and said, I want driving lessons? The instructor would say, how old are you? First thing he would say probably. Or he might just laugh down the phone. Would it change anything if that child gave evidence of wanting to drive a car? Of course not. Either way, that child is going to have to wait a decade in the UK till its 17th birthday to learn and pass its test. There are rules in place for the benefit of that child and wider society. The video even highlights that due to being a small child, Caleb doesn't possess the height that comes with age to even reach the pedals, let alone the mental capacity. The same is true of a child wanting to become an unbaptized publisher and eventually reach out to get baptized. They do not have the physical, mental, or emotional maturity to comprehend these decisions, let alone make them. I honestly believe that this organisation fears that in this modern world, this secular world that we all live in, it is fighting a losing battle. I devoted over 5,000 hours door to door on the ministry. I didn't convert anyone. No one is joining really in the secular world. The only hope that they have is to brainwash children as young, as early as possible, to get them addicted to jumping on this hamster wheel, to reach out, to get the reward and to get the recognition. The longer a child does not get on that wheel, the less likely they are to get baptized and indoctrinate the next generation. Therefore, this video is unequivocal proof that this organisation is reaching new lows of desperation in order to get very young children to confirm their identity as Jehovah's Witnesses and get them secured on the first step of that positional hierarchy.